I was reading the Financial Times, and it was a little tiny two-paragraph story that said, mankind may be causing the mass extinction event. It was like buried on like page 6 or 7, and I thought, this is how humanity is dealing with the issue. They're not dealing with it. Check your cell phone. You get anywhere near this place, he scrambles the signal.
Louie, man, how are you?
Just curious, how many cameras do you have on you right now?
You mean like on my table or?
No, on your body.
On my body? Less than 7, but probably more than 2.
Okay, so we're doing an order here. 1 hat cam, 2 buttonhole cameras, sports bra, 1 bottle cam, 511 tack shirt with the vibration.
Oh, yeah.
So you're rolling right now. So you can get the entrance and make sure that, of course, the straps go on.
Okay.
Your reservations in 10 minutes.
All right. So we ate codfish and ducks.
So we have beef and also some sweet shrimp.
How do you guys know so much about sushi?
I just raised them.
She brought me here.
You both have very exotic tastes.
Yeah.
We try to be adventurous. I've been having sashimi since I was little. My grandpa's like, you know, we would go out.
Thank you.
This is special tamari soy sauce that the chef recommended.
I don't know.
Yep, three pieces. We got it. It's a bingo.
The owners and chef of one of America's trendiest restaurants are facing federal charges tonight, all because of what they put on customers' plates, an endangered species. And behind the undercover sting, some movie makers who went right back to work.
We're making our own road here.
Pretty big. The side of the skull here, yeah.
I did 4 stories about extinction for National Geographic magazine. You go to these beautiful landscapes. There's dinosaurs from horizon to horizon. And you think, that was so far back then.
Yeah.
What if it's going on right now? And everybody's missing it.
Each year, about 1 in a million species should expire naturally. In the next few decades, we'll be driving species to extinction 1,000 times faster than they should be.
It's difficult to estimate precisely how many species we're going to lose. In 100 years or so, we could lose up to 50% of all the species on Earth.
I remember thinking this is the biggest story in the world. It's like we're living in the age of dinosaurs, but we can do something about it.
Anyway, there, a friend of mine just reported up in that area. Roger.
The blue whale is the biggest creature that ever lived on the planet, bigger than any dinosaur ever.
And just like dinosaurs, they're going extinct.
It's coming in hot! Holy crap!
Oh, look at him. Back in the days of whaling, they were hunted to near extinction, down to about 2% of their population. Now they're getting decimated. by shipping traffic.
Go for it. He's coming up to the right.
My hope is that if you can show people the beauty of these animals, there's a chance to save these things. One of the cool things about a blue whale is that it has the loudest song in the animal kingdom, but you can't hear it because it's below our threshold for hearing. We look out at the world through these eyes and these ears and you think, oh, that's it. That's everything that there is to see. But there's this hidden world on almost every level. What I want to do is get people to see it. We get off the boat, and this fisherman comes up to our interpreter and says, can they give me $500? I found this buoy. It's a $500 reward. It needs to be returned up to America. And I said, just a minute, let me take a look at this buoy. And I look at it, and it says, return to Chris Clark, Cornell Bioacoustic Laboratory. I said, I know this guy. Chris had been pioneering new ways of recording whales for 30 years. He basically proved that these animals could hear themselves across oceans. And so, to me, finding that buoy was like finding a message in a bottle.
We've built these recording systems. We drop them in the ocean, and they record continuously. Whales and dolphins and anything that's out there, we try and record. You got that? Okay. So the first time I knew there was a blue whale singing nearby, I could see it on the display, but I couldn't hear it. So what do you have to do? You have to speed it up. And still, the hair goes up on the back of my neck, and it's like, damn, that's fabulous. As we listen more and more around different parts of the planet, whether it's frozen Arctic Ocean or the deepest jungles of Central Africa, the whole world is singing. Clicking and grinding and whistling and thumping. But we've stopped listening.
The Cornell Bioacoustical Laboratory has the largest repository of animal sounds on the planet. They've been collecting them since the 1930s.
You can think of it as a museum, just like it could be bird skins or, beetles tacked up on a wall. So there's this range of sounds from the largest animal ever to live on this planet to the tiniest little insects. This is a song recording of a male oh-oh singing on Kauai. These birds mate for life, so he would be singing a duet with his mate, where he sings and then she sings back and forth. Here comes the male song. There's no response. Here's the male song again. That's the last male of a species singing for a female who will never come. He is totally alone. And now his voice is gone. In the brief lifetime of this collection, 70 years or so, many of the species that were recorded are now extinct. So the repository is a living example of the massive rate of extinction that's happening.
There's been 5 major extinctions in the history of the planet. There's the Ordovician, the Devonian, the Permian. There's the Triassic, Jurassic, and then the KT extinction, the one that killed the dinosaurs. It's very difficult to comprehend in deep time, 4.6 billion years of Earth's history. So if you take, say, the history of the Earth and try to squeeze it into a 24-hour clock, where does man fit on that clock? A few seconds before midnight. That's it. We're the new kid on the block.
What we're seeing now is called the Anthropocene, the new epoch. Anthropocene means the time of humans. It's when the impact of humans is leaving itself as a mark in the fossil record of the future. 65 million years ago, that it was an asteroid that struck and caused the dinosaurs to go extinct.
When it comes to the 6th extinction event, we have no problem identifying the cause. Humanity has become the asteroid.
We're on that tipping point now, where it's either too late or just the beginning of a movement.
So there's 2 pieces of whale and 1 piece of horse.
At the Hump restaurant, we knew that they were selling whale meat. But there's also something bigger going on. We heard that the Obama administration was in closed-doors negotiations with the Japanese to go do commercial whaling again. And I thought, well, if we could prove that endangered whales are being served right here on the shores of America, we would stop that conversation.
Stop the murders! Stop the blade! Hump Restaurant is to blame!
The animal rights community took it up, but the restaurant didn't close down. There's this one guy I'd never heard of before. His name is Adi Gill. He took some gear and put it out in front of the Hump restaurant as people are going in. What are you doing?
I'm protesting. Yesterday, there were like 200 people here protesting, and I thought, somebody need to keep the pressure on.
If you look at the Academy Awards and the Golden Globes, those are his screens, and that's all his projections. And so he parks his Ferrari right next to the van, and the owner comes out and tells Adi, says, how long are you gonna be doing this?
And he thought that I was just some hippie, gonna be here for a day or 2. I said, listen, man, I can be here for a month or 2 or a year or whatever. How long can you survive while I'm here?
10 days later, the restaurant closes down. To me, it was a beautiful moment. Everybody had gone home, and this one guy sits with this big, bright light and keeps the light shining on this subject. There are thousands of people all over the world willing and able and changing their careers to save species. And they go to some of the darkest, grimmest, most unsafe places on the planet.
Let's save the shark! Let's save it!
Over 800 environmental activists have been killed in just the last decade. So these guys are doing the tough work. And we never hear about them. They're not household names. Sean Heinrichs. I live in Boulder, Colorado. You can't get any more landlocked than Colorado. And I found out that there's this incredible ocean activist living right down the street who quit his job as a CFO for a tech company so he could help save endangered species. Sean's doing some of the best, most groundbreaking work that I've seen anywhere in the world.
Isla Mujeres was the largest shark fishing island on the east coast of Mexico. At least 20, if not more, longliners were targeting sharks each and every single day.
Sean helped turn this hunting ground into one of the top places in the world where you can actually go and watch sharks.
Now you have this community of ex-shark fishermen who are making much more money taking tourists out to swim with whale sharks than killing sharks on long lines. It's just simple economics.
Sean often works with his buddy, Paul Hilton, an investigative photojournalist. They can't help but to get themselves into dangerous situations.
Traveler's paradise. Paul's a photojournalist, like me, focused on endangered species. He's brilliant at what he does.
Paul and Sean try to bust rings selling endangered species.
We're gonna blow the lid off this place, right?
Sean's pretty full on. I love his enthusiasm. He talks far too much when we're on assignment, so there's always that issue of me having a go at him and saying, mate, wind it up. I think it's the American in him.
I'm rolling. I can distract.
And a lot of the situations we go into, it's always nice to go on as teams because you're going into situations where you get caught up in the moment with the camera and you're actually photographing and there's no one watching your back.
That's the toilet. Where's the toilet?
Paul and Sean have this technique of, they have a camera sitting around their neck, and most people think you have to put up to your eye to look through it and to shoot, and it's actually a video camera and it's rolling the whole time.
So many. And this is the Jaws? Movie Jaws?
Don't push it too much.
Okay, cool, very cool. I don't know about you, that's the most fins I've ever seen.
How did you find out about this?
Facebook, basically, and then colleagues, mates. We just walked straight in, basically.
Wow. How long were you there?
10, 15 minutes.
You did all this in 10, 15 minutes?
Oh, yeah,
Are we almost there, Paul?
Yeah, so it's the next block now. Yeah, the next one.
I didn't think that the illegal wildlife trade would be so overt. You can go down streets, and every other shop will be full of endangered creatures.
Look at this one right here.
It's not just shark fins. It's just about everything endangered in the world is for sale there.
With the explosion of demand in China for shark fin soup, it was estimated that 250,000 sharks are caught for the fin trade every single day.
Probably no other species illustrates what's going on in the oceans right now better than sharks. Sharks predate dinosaurs. They survived 4 mass extinction events. And in just this one generation that I've been alive, we've cut down their ranks about 90%.
I was following a group of shark finners in Indonesia, and they were moving around camp to camp. And then one morning, I saw something reflecting off on the coral reef in the shallow water. And what I discovered was just horrific. It's this beautiful tawny nurse shark, but it had all its fins cut off. And it was trying to swim, but it couldn't swim. And it was heartbreaking because it's like, this is what the reality is. This is the thing that nobody gets.
The biggest shark fin processing plant, which is behind us, about 200 meters. So I was on the phone with this guy.
But are we going to get likely of us getting in there?
I have a key contact here.
Okay.
Sean has an interpreter. I don't want to say her name, but she's been doing undercover work in China for several decades. The first place she took us was a place that they couldn't ever get into before. Basically, the Walmart of the endangered species trade in Hong Kong.
Over the years, I've actually worked really hard to get into this facility. So has Paul, and so has his friends, and we've managed to maybe step in the door for 30 seconds.
Hey, what's wrong?
His staff would come out and push us away, threaten to call the police.
Hands, machete, kicked out the door, don't ever come back.
That's what we do. We have a car waiting with all the stuff in it. I brought along a couple of colleagues from the Hump Bust. Heather Raleigh, who does undercover work for us. and Charles Hamilton, who's sort of my director of covert operations.
In the alley here, on the right-hand side.
We invented a cover. We pretended like we were on a culinary tour, and we were looking for exotic product.
I think we stick to plan. We're going as culinary tour. She introduces Mr. Sawyer, and we're all here learning and taking pictures of culinary.
You can get into about as much trouble as you can possibly get into with a buttonhole camera in China.
For some reason, we run into people with badges and uniforms. Strip off all the shit, just rip it out from under your shirt and throw it over a wall. Go right in. Go in. Go in. Go in.
Hi.
美食来香港，拜访吃，跟他们会看一些食材这样子。
哦，高档的仪式。
对，比较最好的是哪一种？
What is the business you are doing? Marine product?
We're starting a business where we want to sell seafood. We have a seafood shop. Well, back where we do it, it's mainly tuna and marlin and swordfish. They want to see something more exciting.
Because the Chinese traveler and the Asian traveler has become big business now. It's more than 50%.
We should go. We should probably go.
No.
Yeah, come. I saw you around here.
This is nice.
Yeah.
I need to go bathroom bad.
It is a bath.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
It is hard to catch a shark, you know. If you get the shark, every part of the shark can be sold as money. So we are not going to throw any meat, you know, of the shark. But a lot of Greece people, they are misunderstanding our industry. They thought that they take the fin and then let the live shark go down into the sea and die struggling like this, you know, very bad. But that is not the truth. That video is made by the Greenies themselves. Look at, this is the worm.
Are these expensive also?
Yeah, very expensive. Yeah, biggest one is $44,800 per kilo. $44,800 per kilo. It is a wholesale price.
No way.
They believe. That's why I say they believe can cure the cancer. Chinese, they have a lot of beliefs.
We ended up going down the road to another warehouse on the Hong Kong waterfront.
Louis, look at this.
It must have been 10, 20,000 fins in one location. This was one of the biggest facilities on the planet.
Looks like a blue, but...
The scale was just out of control. I've never seen anything like that before in my life.
Jesus.
I feel like this world is absolutely insane. I remember once diving the northernmost islands of the Galapagos, Darwin Island and Wolf Island, you know, islands that Darwin actually never had been to before. But it's a land before time. I mean, it's like land before humans got there. And I remember this giant whale shark came by, and then a pod of dolphins came by. You know, this is back when you shot film. And the whole frame was just filled with wildlife. And this dolphin came swimming from behind the front of the whale shark, and it grabbed this tuna, and it brought it and looked right at me and shook it. And it swallowed it tail first down its throat. And I thought, you know, this is when you want 37 pictures on a 36 roll of film. Just magical, absolutely magical.
As underwater photographers, photojournalists really, We're documenting a time and a place that in the future may not be there. And the clock is moving.
The first photographs I shot, the assignment for National Geographic, 1960, I took a total of 7 or 8 frames on 2 1/4 square film, on Ektachrome film, and butted them together. It was the first underwater color panorama ever done on the reefs. And this one I came back in 1989. The beautiful barrier reef forest went to hell.
Now I'm looking around and saying, well, what happened here? It's not so far off from what happened 65 million years ago.
Extinction is often being driven by direct human activity, things like habitat destruction or overfishing. And then there's global climate change, which is happening in a different way. So we have this sort of dual things, like the direct hand of man and the indirect hand of man in the change of climate.
Climate is controlled by the oceans. The oceans are the big guy, they're in control. And the oceans now are slowly changing. And that is the danger we face today. A mass extinction is driven by a change of the environment. And we are changing the environment precisely along the lines that can trigger off one of these great catastrophes. There's been 5 mass extinctions, and they've had different causes, but there's been one common factor in all: a massive increase in carbon dioxide. And you've never had a carbon dioxide spike like it's happening now.
We are burning through the fossil fuels laid down over hundreds of millions of years, really reversing geological history, basically, and we're doing it really, really fast.
In the Gulf oil spill, about 4.9 million barrels of oil was spilled. That represents about 1/4 of what we use every single day in the US.
You look at an event like the Gulf oil spill and you think, this is the biggest environmental catastrophe in America ever. But that spill is nothing compared to the damage caused by us doing everyday things we don't even think about. And I'm more guilty than anyone. The worst thing you can do to the environment is make a film about it.
This looks really cool.
We did a carbon assessment of the first 2 years of production, and I was horrified at how much energy it takes to do what I do.
Sweet. We're gonna turn this one on.
We're at the point where we're making our lives a lot better for us. But we're doing it at the expense of everything going forward. We have many, many ways to fix this problem. The question is, are we going to do it fast enough?
What we know at the moment is we're driving this out of control, and the ocean's chemistry is changing really rapidly, scarily fast. When we put carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, it doesn't all stay there. Between 1/3 and 1/2 gets absorbed by the oceans.
The CO2 reacts with water to form something called carbonic acid. And each year the ocean becomes more and more acidic.
If you want to know what that does, get a seashell and drop it in, a glass of vinegar. A whole variety of creatures will simply dissolve into the acid ocean that we have created.
There's massive death in the oceans. It's already started. Oh, it's not started, it's well on the way.
Those are larvae?
Yeah. See
the brown smudge.
Yep.
Each year we harvest 7 to 10 billion oyster larvae that we send out to growers throughout the Pacific Northwest. I still remember the day all of the larvae essentially in our entire hatchery were on the bottom of the tanks. So 6 billion larvae all died in a single day.
And that deep ocean water off the coast of Washington and Oregon comes into the hatchery intakes. They can't grow their shell. It's evolving faster than they can grow it.
It seemed outlandish to think that the ocean could be acidified enough to cause us these kind of problems. It just seemed like something for the distant future and nothing we ever had to pay attention to.
The rate of change that we're seeing in the ocean and the change that it's going to create in our food chain, it's going to be dramatic, and it's going to be in our lifetimes. The things that we're used to eating may not be available anymore, and we may need to transition to, eating jellyfish or something like that. Start a new trend.
It sounds a bit silly, change your diet and save the planet, but if humans could become vegetarians now, it would make a massive difference.
By far and away, the biggest factor in terms of this mass extinction is destroying natural habitat or converting natural habitat into land for food.
The more dependent we are on meat, milk, and eggs, the greater the CO2 and methane emissions. Cattle and ruminants of all kinds produce methane as a byproduct of breaking down grass and other things that they feed on.
So the contractions are pushing this gas out from the stomach, going through here in the one-way valve.
Yes, and
into
after
the bag.
this, we collect inside the bag.
So how long has that bag been collecting gas?
Only 2 hours.
Methane is something like 22 times more potent as a climate-changing gas than is CO2. So it doesn't take very much methane to make a difference.
A cow can basically fill up a 55-gallon garbage bag full of methane every day. One cow's not a problem, but now we have 1.5 billion of them. And it's an incredibly inefficient way of producing food. 3/4 of agricultural land is used just to feed livestock. When you factor in everything, the clearing of the land for grazing, feeding, transporting, livestock causes more greenhouse gases than all the direct emissions from the entire transportation sector.
I don't think it's a competition between these problems. I don't think one could be put above the other. It's like saying, well, is global warming worse than ocean acidification, or is fishing all the big fish in the sea worse than polluting it? And I think it'd be foolish to try and single out any one of them to say this is how we're going to fix the planet's problems. We need to fight them on all fronts.
Little rodents.
God, look at my house cats.
Look at this one's, it's still alive. A lot of doors closing.
Lights going off. That's scary, man. They were definitely not welcome here, huh?
In 2002, the government clamped down on the wildlife markets across southern China. So things started to go underground, so operating in early hours of the morning, and it's horrific.
They're shutting down. They're shutting down. That's craziness, huh?
They're hiding them now.
Oh my gosh!
This is a market that had to switch places twice that year.
Oh, what are they doing?
I mean, they know they're not supposed to be doing what they're doing.
That's hardcore.
The more endangered it is, the more illegal it is, the more you have to go to the back rooms.
So Louis, I want to show you something right here. You're looking at a dozen manta rays sitting right in these bags right here. When you consider that each of these animals has one pup every couple of years, You're looking at literally an entire generation wiped out just in these bags. A few years ago, I started noticing species of manta and mobula ray lined up in the streets in areas that used to be predominantly shark ports. And it was really confusing to me because I understood that you can't use their wings for shark fin soup, and the meat from these rays is very pungent. It's not worth the time of bringing in these huge, heavy animals.
I couldn't believe when I walked in, there's just giant oceanic mantas all lined up in a row. And I just wanted to know what was going on. And then I started watching them cutting out the gills. The gills are missing. Where did they put them? Where did they take the gills?
And it came down to this. There was an old cultural remedy in a very small coastal town in southern China, and that was over 50 years ago. And that had largely disappeared, but I think it was just following the SARS outbreak, where somebody got it in their mind that, hey, we're running out of sharks. What other products can we move into the pipeline?
若干年前，中国药用动物志，这是一本书，作为药用的编了一本书，这本书才记载这个氟粪鳃治疗疾病。
The gills of manta rays ended up in all the traditional Chinese medicine stores and the dry seafood stores.
氟粪鳃的话，还可以治疗什么呢？活血化瘀，治跌打损伤，可以治疗癌症。这个是多半呢，是因为开始是流见于民间。
I remember my first encounter with a manta in the water is something I'll never forget. I'm sitting in the water, and then just out of the blue, this manta ray does this huge flyby right past, and then goes back into the blue. And then I'm just left, breathless, waiting.
Just recently, we were in Bali. At the end of the last dive, everyone was out of the water. And I look down, and this one manta comes right underneath me, and then just stops, and it hovers, and it's about 15 feet down, and it's not moving. And I'm like, well, that's interesting. And I look, and there's fishing line tailing off the top of its body. And the first thing I did is I swam down, I snipped the line off the top of its head, right just above the hook. And swam up. She didn't swim away. She was just hovering right underneath me. So I swim back down to her one more time, and I put my hand gently right on the front of her head, and I put my hand on the hook, and I slowly work that hook right out of its top jaw. And I thought, that's it. You know, she's gonna swim off now, she's been saved. I look down, and she's circling right under my feet. So I swim back down to her one more time, and I put my hand right next to where the injury was, as if sort of rubbing it, saying, hey, listen, you're gonna be okay. And I put my head right next to her eye, and I just remember her eye moving back and forth between my mask, looking at both my eyes. And realized that she knew I was trying to help her. Often people say, how can one person make a difference?
What if you could see how shark fin soup is made? If you could see how each year up to 70 million sharks are killed to end up in soup, could you still eat it?
I shared the footage of the live fin shark in Indonesia with WildAid, an organization that has been working on shark conservation in China. The film went to over 1 billion people in Asia. 80% who were surveyed who saw it said they were either going to quit eating shark fin soup or drastically reduce their consumption of it.
Remember, when the buying stops, the killing can too.
As a still photographer, I could see the power of an image. It was transformative. I think it's in our DNA to take care of future generations. And if you can find that way in, you can reach people really quickly and change them.
The human eye is so limited, we see only a tiny little sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum. It's like if you owned a grand piano in your house, but you could only hear one note on it. Normally, carbon dioxide gas is invisible to the human eye, but certain wavelengths of infrared will be absorbed by gases like CO2 or methane. So that's what's going on here. This camera has a very particular color filter on it, enabling us to visualize the CO2 gas that's coming out of our noses and mouths.
We had two cameras. One camera that sees what your eye sees, and the other, what the fossil fuel companies don't want the rest of the world to see, the carbon dioxide world.
Let's do this one coming at us.
Everybody steady. 3, 2, 1.
I mean, it's disgusting, but it's beautiful.
So let's go to the left here.
On the left here?
Real slow,
Well, these
yeah.
guys are gonna be good. Slow creep. Slowly, slowly, slowly.
Slowly. Wow.
Just about everything that we do emits carbon dioxide. From the way we heat and air condition our houses, the way we do our transportation systems, whether it's planes, trains, or automobiles. Just about everything pumps out vast amounts of carbon dioxide. But you can't see it. To be able to see this hidden world was like you were let in on this magic trick. But the magic trick is actually killing the planet.
Shit, this looks like a big parade of crap, doesn't it?
Just filth. I got.
So what are you working on, buddy?
Come on in, I will show you.
Is this your flux capacitor?
It's close. It's,
right here, actually. I can spin this. You see
it
this?
shoots carbon dioxide.
I mean, what, the government hiring you? Who's doing it? You just doing it on your own thing, or what?
It's like a science project.
Science
project.
In many ways, our generation is the one with the last hand on the throttle that just pushes that throttle down. We're putting so much carbon dioxide and so much methane into the atmosphere. It's quite possible, if you think about it, that the baby boom generation itself is the single most impactful generation of mammals this planet has ever seen.
In the Anthropocene, we're changing every parameter. We're changing the geology of the planet, we're changing the chemistry of the ocean. The Anthropocene means that what happens to this planet is now in our own hands. When you take any drop off the ocean anywhere, and you look under a microscope, there's so much beauty there on this tiny scale, this miniature architecture that I never tire of looking at.
Our first speaker is Boris Vorm, and he's published a number of important and controversial papers in recent years on the decline of phytoplankton.
When I give a talk on plankton, I say, first of all, let's take a breath and let's take a second breath, and then contemplate the fact that that second breath came from the ocean, because it was produced ultimately by phytoplankton, which produce half of the oxygen we breathe. We're aware that we are changing the ocean at a global scale. So there's multiple human impacts ranging from fishing to climate change and acidification, implying that no part of the ocean is free from human impact.
Using satellite imagery and other data, Dr. Worm determined that we may have lost 40% of plankton production in just the last 50 years.
It's happening primarily as a consequence of climate change, and There is a lot of controversy because it's a big question. And if this plankton decline pans out to be as dramatic as we think it is, then that would be a big deal.
Your life depends on the ocean's breathing. And in fact, animals could only exist on land after plankton in the oceans had produced enough oxygen for them to live by.
We have this illusion that it's the big things in the environment that count. But if you lose the small things, everything else fails. It's like there's this incredible web where we're all connected. And if you take out one little thing, let's say like plankton, everything, the whole web collapses.
It's like having a symphony. And one by one, you just pluck each of the instruments out of the orchestra. To your last voices there. And then it's gone.
It's out of order. When globally, most of the world's fighting to protect these species, and he's taking 600, possibly even more every year. That's the processing plant.
Paul found this guy, Mr. Lee, one of the biggest smugglers of endangered sharks in the world. They had 3 protected species of sharks: basking sharks, great whites, and whale sharks.
Well, like I said, I've had possible business opportunity to buy omega-3 oils from him.
What do I need to know about fish oil?
I said, look, we need 100% confirmation that it's a good product. And then, yeah, ask for samples.
I'm just going to play it like a little bit angry, defensive, and you're trying to pacify me.
Is it
Where am I operating out of in the U.S.? I'm going to say Brooklyn.
Wherever, that's your call, man.
Charcoal is being used for omega-3, but these sharks he's trading are endangered and protected in China and internationally.
The only law that we really have to protect endangered species is CITES. CITES is the Convention for International Trade of Endangered Species. And there's only a few hundred animals that are actually on that list. And part of the reason is because the people that control CITES are actually in the trade of selling them.
Head of this CITES conference, a new decision-making mechanism to set up a centralized system for the resumption of the international trade in elephant ivory.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell him the economy's been down. It's taken a while to get people interested. Obviously, Mr. Sawyer's very interested.
就是金沙的油，就最好的油就是老沙的油。
You say the best quality is basking shark oil?
Can we take a very small sample back of...
Just to let you know, last time he did give me some. And
I didn't test it though. We need to have my people test it. I'm not going to be. I'm not going to. I don't know who your lab is. I use my. I'm sorry. Sorry. Just my. This be my lab.
Sure.
Can I just borrow Louis for 1 second? You have to talk. Just one second, so we can just the one I want to know about.
You gotta do up your top button because you can totally see your microphone and the tape right there.
Jesus Christ. Okay. I think he saw it.
Right, maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah. Milo.
I just want to make sure that 5 years from now we don't have problems with people saying, "Oh, well, you fished out all the whale sharks."
像这个其实是一个趋势。哎，现在是意大利，现在是一年我们在推广，它是10万吨。
毛线。
鲨鱼肉。
那你那个金沙那个皮？
金沙的皮我们现在是，其实走私出去。
OK。
能吃到这个东西，我们会做人吃的。
Yeah。
没有，全部是纯正的。
100%. Whale shark.
Yeah.
We walked up the steps and looked into the processing ground, and there was whale sharks chopped in bits all over the floor. So we just walked in and started photographing. Then we sent out a press release to the world's media. It went viral. It had National Geographic, Time magazine, the BBC. It just went everywhere. The Chinese government are doing a lot at the moment for endangered species. They're burning ivory. They've banned shark fin soup at government banquets. And things are really moving in the right direction.
Bye.
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 So I just hope they can be proactive with Mr. Lee. We get down about it, but maybe there is light at the end of the tunnel.
So you're going to see that people are changing. So we are on our way. Just don't be so depressed. If in our lifetime everything can change a little bit, that's already worth it.
It's really easy for us to look east and say, look what China's doing. They're destroying the planet. They're polluting everything. They're wiping out species. But the West is already doing an incredible job of massively depleting and damaging the environment and taking out a lot of threatened species. What's happening in China now is they're going through the same growing pains that we did. But when we went through our growing pains, there was only 1 billion people on the planet. With China going through its growing pains, there's over 1.3 billion people in China alone. We've already pushed so many vulnerable species and the environment to the brink. We can't afford to keep making the same mistakes because there'll be nothing left.
Some of the world's rarest amphibians are inside that trailer. I've heard up to half of all frog species could be gone in the next 20 years.
Yeah. There are 7,000 species of amphibian, and they're all endangered.
PhotoArc's my 20-year attempt to photograph every captive species on Earth. One guy's desperate attempt to get people to care. That's it. There he is. The very last Rab's fringed limb tree frog. Very last one. Chytrid fungus wiped them all out in Panama. So he's the last one. That's it. When he's gone, they'll be extinct. Can we lift his chin up a little bit for me, please? Perfect. This is his big moment. And a lot of times, these pictures I do are the only national coverage these animals will ever get before they go extinct. This is it. This is their one chance. I really hope the PhotoArc isn't just some sort of an archive of the things we lost, but instead it's a chance to get people interested, look these animals in the eye, and fall in love with them.
There's only 330, 340 species of turtles, and half of them are under threat. If the temperature rises on the planet just a few degrees, they're very susceptible to extinction. So this is really the last line of defense, keeping animals that are extinct in the wild in a captive situation. I think you could compare something like this, or nature in general, to the finest works of art on the planet, and in my opinion, more than the best Picasso, Matisse, Warhol.
Life wants to flourish. DNA wants to go forward. We need to be part of that.
Why would we want to do anything to disrupt something that took billions of years to evolve?
See how the trees are all falling into the lake. And they're doing that because the permafrost in the ground is melting.
In the Arctic and these cold regions around the planet, underneath the lakes, underneath the oceans, there's vast, vast quantities of frozen methane. It's been in there for millions of years.
This lake has a lot of methane bubbling out of it. In fact, we can light those methane bubbles on fire.
School kids know about the extinction event that killed all the big dinosaurs. But paleontologists, you know, the connoisseurs of this, they look back at the Permian extinction. And that's the biggest extinction in the history of the planet. Almost all life on the planet disappeared. It's called the Great Dying. You know, the KT is pretty obvious that was caused by a meteor, but what the hell killed all the animals on land and sea back at the Permian? And now they're coming around to thinking it's probably methane.
So the Arctic is getting gradually warmer, and the methane that's been locked away for millions of years is starting to come out.
When all this gets going, we will have what we call a runaway effect. That's runaway climate change, and it's unstoppable.
Are you all right?
The only way to tackle the methane problem is to reduce CO2 emissions, because that's what's warming the Arctic, letting this methane bubble up.
You know, the great irony is like the oil companies, they see the melting of the ice as an opportunity to go up there and drill more holes for oil. And what we don't realize is underneath that, that's what people have to worry about.
We do know from the fossil record that even pre-human climate changes could happen fast. I'm not talking millions of years. I'm talking 3 years or 4 years. Way less than a mortgage. Less time than it takes for your kid to go through college. And what if the world's temperature goes up 6 degrees in 3 years?
It will lead to massive death in the oceans. When the oceans start dying like that, the planet can't function as it used to function. And when that happens, life everywhere fails. That is a mass extinction.
There's this remote island in Indonesia. It's right at the tip where the sea comes sort of crashing into this channel. And through this corridor are whales and dolphins and all kinds of animals. And at the tip of this island is this village called Namakara. There's no place on Earth that we know of where more manta rays are being killed than in that single village. We realized if we were going to deal with the manta issue, we had to go to ground zero. These are manta rings. So they make like sets of 20 or 40, and they're about $20 a set, and you get a couple of sets off a manta at maximum. And then you get about $500 to $600 from the gills.
There's a gill, so you can see the end of it. All the cartilage will be sent to China to be crushed down into pills for glycerine sulfate for the sore joints and stuff.
We sat down, we meet with Kapala Desa, who's the chief.
Masyarakat nelayan pikir rombongan datang melarang manta.
Kalau rombongan ini punya misi dalam kerangka melestarikan kepada masyarakat kami yang ada di sini, kami mengharapkan ada jalan keluarnya. Dan hasil tangkapan manta ini menjadi komoditi ekonomi yang bisa diperjualkan untuk membiayai anak-anak untuk dan mata pencarian di darat tidak ada hasil pertanian, kebun tidak ada, mereka tidak punya pilihan lain.
Initially, they weren't very welcoming. They didn't want us to stay.
And ultimately, we managed to talk our way onto one of the fishing vessels.
Ning, ask him how they caught it.
A couple of hours into the fishing trip, they saw this black figure on the surface, just cruising.
Park it out. Park left.
Blood starts to color the water.
Over the course of an hour, this thing struggles for its life.
It's big.
And I'm looking at this and I'm going, God, I can't do this. He just sticks in the brain of this animal and it just freaks out. I actually watched its soul just disappear in front of me, and then it went limp.
Paul, hurry. No, don't panic, don't panic.
As we're going towards the village, an armada of boats starts streaming past us. And they're all triangulating on this group of manta rays that have come into their waters. The first thing they do is start hacking into the gills. With the advent of traders providing diesel-powered engines and a supply chain all the way out to China, they transitioned very quickly to the full-on commercial outfit. And it's only a few years before the manta rays would be wiped out.
They realize the numbers are dropping. Even if we weren't here, they realize something has to change. What are their children going to be doing? They're going to have nothing left. It's just losing a bit of magic, you know? The world, without that species, to me, it's empty, you know?
In 200 years, people will look back on this particular period and say to themselves, how did those people at that time just allow all these amazing creatures to vanish? But it would be very little use in me or anybody else exerting all this energy to save the wild places if people are not being educated into being better stewards than we've been. If we all lose hope, there is no hope. Without hope, people fall into apathy. There's still a lot left that's worth fighting for.
About 2 decades ago, the Baiji dolphin was extremely vulnerable. There was hundreds of them left. I mean, I thought, well, there's enough out there. Somebody's going to do something to save this animal. This animal, it wasn't just the last of its species, it was the last of an entire family of cetaceans. So I thought, humans, somebody somewhere has got to go out and save these animals. They have to, because they're dying off. They're all gone now. They went extinct. In my lifetime, they went extinct. So we always think that there's going to be somebody else around to save these animals.
This field is one of the last places on Earth where you can see a Florida grasshopper sparrow. And there's fewer males singing every year.
We're roughly around 20 sparrows a year.
From 150 to 20. So it's getting harder every year to find the bird, huh? You hear something?
That's a grasshopper sparrow.
Phase out is a term you hear sometimes by zookeepers. When a species is no longer viable in captivity, they think about phasing it out. Just kind of slip off into extinction.
Here he is.
There, you got him. Got him.
Right there. You'll never phase out an elephant or a panda or a rhino. But, you know, if it's a small brown bird, how are you ever going to get people excited about that? My pictures of the sparrow ended up on the cover of Audubon. And when the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service saw that, they went from allocating $30,000 a year towards the grasshopper sparrow to about $1.3 million this year to try to study it and turn things around for this bird. Here he goes. Yeah, just moving back my way again.
To me, photography isn't just about showing somebody how beautiful something is. It's a weapon. Remember what Adi Gill was able to do with that little projector in front of the hump, what he was able to achieve. And I thought, well, how can we scale this up?
When we dream, we don't dream inside of a box. We dream inside of worlds. Early photographs were circular. Even early TVs were circular. But to make more out of the medium, there was a decision made to crop it into a box. And the box has a lot to do with the way we think. My way has always been blowing up the medium into a million pieces and letting it become something else.
Travis has done projections on iconic buildings all over the world. My fantasy would be to take the work of my photographer friends at National Geographic and amplify their message by orders of magnitude.
If we just had like a whale going by, and then it jumps off into some other building.
It'd be beautiful.
I still love the idea of sharks on Wall Street.
What do you think?
Yeah, no problem.
80% of the greenhouse gases that are caused by cities are caused by commercial buildings. Tony Malkin, the guy that owns the Empire State Building, probably the most iconic building in the world, and he's greened it.
Everyone had written off the Empire State Building as outmoded and obsolete. We retrofitted 6,500 windows, replaced all the lights with LEDs, redid the heating and cooling systems. From that, we actually saved $4.4 million a year. The best way to move the needle when people are talking about the environment is the bottom line.
I like to project into the woods.
Try to see the whole building?
No, we do the whole building. And we can also, like, the mobile idea, where we can mount projectors onto trucks and just drive with them. So
that would be cool. Travis had drawn up an illustration of a mobile projection vehicle. Just looking at the plans, it opened up a whole new world of possibility.
It can't just be the environmental activists that care about getting off of fossil fuels. Everybody has to become a part of it.
I heard that there's this race car driver that was an environmentalist in a sport that traditionally doesn't care about the environment. So like a living contradiction.
When I go to the sports marketing companies and I say, can you help me find sponsors? And then I give them the list of people I won't work with. No fossil fuels, no oil, no coal, no meat, no people who test on animals, no fur, no leather. They just look at me like, I don't know how you want us to help you.
Leilani Munter has just passed 5 cars in the last lap and a half, and she is reeling crest-fist.
Sometimes I have an environmentalist say, well, if you were really an environmentalist, you know, you'd be racing a bike. And the problem with that is, then I wouldn't have 75 million people paying attention to my sport.
Thank you.
You look at a guy like Elon Musk. He builds reusable rocket ships to supply the space station. He's the biggest installer of solar in America, and he built the best rated car ever made, and it's electric. Leilani knew Elon Musk.
I think we are currently doing something very, very dumb, which is to run this experiment on how much CO2 the ocean's atmosphere can hold. In order to have a future that does not result in an environmental catastrophe followed by economic collapse, which is what would occur if we didn't get off oil, that's why we have to have electric cars.
I think we want to put in an order for a car today.
Excellent, we'll take one.
All right, go ahead. Ready? Yeah. It's pretty quick.
It's going to go that fast with 105 pounds on it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the focal length on it is crazy. You'll be able to shoot really far with it.
We can zoom hundreds of feet from something or like 1,000 feet and scale it.
Thousands of feet with this?
Yeah.
But how far will these project?
A mile. Now, I'm building one for you guys that's 3 times louder than this. Oh, suddenly there's just this amazing sound. You can't hear that?
We've taken inspiration from ocean creatures like plankton, cuttlefish, that use the light as a communication device or a camouflage, and added an electroluminescent paint job.
Incredible.
With the mobile projection, we can go anywhere we want with it. We can take it to the highways, we can take it to big buildings, we can take it to the streets.
We'll be able to project CO2 emissions in real time out of the projector at the back of the vehicle while Leilani's driving.
So that's legal.
That's legal?
Until you push that. That works, right?
That's legal.
Okay, it's ready to go, boss.
My feeling is that by bringing nature to the city, we're hopefully able to inspire people to actually help save these creatures.
There's a lot of species that need protection. Most species that are deserving never get listed. After a 4-year campaign, we finally managed to get mantas on the docket at the 2013 CITES meeting. So what I want to show you here is a video that shows what we're doing. Most people say you can't beat money. You can't beat politics. You can't beat those things with just hope and inspiration. We have to make it socially unacceptable to consume these animals.
I think we live in a very visual world. Imagery is very powerful. Because you can walk into a room, they might speak 15 different languages, but you show them a photograph, people get it, they understand. Supping on conservation soup. There we go. There's the Hong Kong rooftop.
I will ask us to move quickly to the next proposal, the inclusion of manta species on Appendix 2.
On behalf of the European Union and its member states in Croatia, we support the proposal to include the manta ray.
South Africa as a range state shares the same support.
China is not support this proposal. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Copy that. Let's just go for it now.
You got your seatbelt on?
Yep.
Let's take a right. Just keep on going. Keep on going.
Good.
So what are you filming on the vehicle?
Oh, it's a light on top of the vehicle.
So what are you documenting?
Yeah, and we're getting shots in industrial areas.
Why industrial areas?
The reflections on the car look prettier.
Might want to do it somewhere else, right?
What if we photograph your smoke?
That's not smoke.
What is it?
That's steam.
So if we film your steam, is that okay?
No.
I want people to understand that we're the only generation left that can save these animals. There's no other future generation that we can count on to save us. It's us.
We do not have a consensus. Technicians, please display the result.
The only way you're going to affect change in a remote community like Lemakara is to present an alternative. With the CITES victory, we succeeded in getting manta rays listed for protection, which led to a national ban on all fisheries for manta rays throughout all of Indonesia. In fact, it's illegal to even harm one, and it can result in up to a year in prison. That law, it creates new possibilities. Yeah, it's our theater. Yeah, projector. And then where is the electric? And in the world of conservation, those small opportunities and those small doorways that you open often lead to those breakthrough moments. Now, whether it works, that's the next step.
Hari ini saya kalau nelayan, kalau hari ini kita tetap melakukan kegiatan itu saya agak pesimis untuk kalau masih agak mantah, malahan punah kan gitu. Itu yang kita tidak menginginkan seperti ini. Penangkapan manta ini harus kita kurangi. Ya, sehingga anak cucu kita ke depan bisa melihat itu bentuk manta itu seperti apa.
Selamat malam, Mama Kara. Where's he?
There's our village. We want them to get an entirely new view that the stuff they go out in the water and they see every day and they stick a spear in is worth far more alive than dead. The concept of converting this hunting culture to a tourism culture on the surface seems pretty daunting. But we show them the success stories that we've had in these other areas. Places in the world that had very little and now are thriving.
These kids are going to be really influenced by this, and they're going to be the guides of the future. We're just bringing a message. It's really up to them.
Oh, nice.
We can make this happen. As we face more and more animal extinctions, we need more and more of these indomitable spirits. And we need more people to understand it's worth doing. The small choices we make each day can lead to the kind of world that we all want for the future.
There was a reverend in Japan. He had a statement which really struck me. And it was, better to light one candle than curse the darkness. There's so many people who sit back and say we're screwed. Or, why bother? But you know what? That candle means something. Because with that one candle, maybe someone else with a candle will find you. And I think that's where movements are started.
I know it all sounds overwhelming. But if we start with just one thing,
We can start a movement.
Trees, between the leaves, all the growing that we did, all the loving and all the turning to face each other. I divide in the sky. In the seams between the beams, or the loving and separating, or the turning to face each other without biodiversity. I'm nothing means like I never existed. inside me, my children are dying now. Inside me, my children. All I love, all I know, all I've known, I am dying now. Inside me, my children.